The year was 1999. Wide Open Spaces by the Dixie Chicks won Album of the Year at the Country Music Awards. Lauryn Hill's Doo-Wop won Video of the Year at the MTV Music Video Awards. And Madonna's Ray of Light was beaten out for Record of the Year at the Grammys by Celine Dion's My Heart Will Go On. While the Queen of Pop was busy licking her wounds, her future ex-husband was about to make waves in the U.S. with his feature film debut about 4 knuckleheads, a pair of antique guns, and a mountain of marijuana. But Jesse never saw it, until now. This is Movies I Missed, 1999, Episode 2, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
I'm Jesse Munoz.
And I'm Ryan Miller.
And this is Movies I Missed, 1999. Episode number 2. Today we are talking about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I do want to give a warning. We will be discussing all aspects of this movie, so be advised that includes spoilers. Released March 5th, 1999 in the U.S. with a running time of 1 hour and 46 minutes. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is a 1999 British crime comedy film directed by Guy Ritchie. The story revolves around 4 friends, Eddie, Tom, Soap, and Bacon, who pool their money to enter a high-stakes poker game hosted by Hatchet Harry, a notorious crime lord and porn king. Eddie, a skilled card player, loses the game and ends up owing £500,000 to Harry, with only a week to pay off the debt. In their desperate bid to gather the money, the friends overhear a plan by their neighbors, a gang of petty criminals, to rob a group of marijuana growers. Seizing the opportunity, Eddie and his friends plan to rob the gang after their heist. The resulting chaos involves a series of double crosses, mistaken identities, and a violent confrontation, all revolving around 2 antique shotguns that various parties are trying to acquire.
Jesus, Tom. Do these work?
Don't know. They look nice, though, don't they? I rather like them.
Oh, that's top of the list of priorities, that is.
Ladies, back to more important issues, if you don't mind. We have only got 2 real guns. Apparently that's what they are. So we find a good place to hide next door. We wait till it sounds like the right time, then we jack in the box, look nasty and stuff, cocoon them in gaffer tape, nick their van, swap the gear into the new van and bring it all back here. As long as we're all out of our hiding places quickly, it's the last thing you're going to expect. Oh, and if Tom, or anyone else for that matter, feels like giving them a bit of a kicking, I'm sure it won't do any harm.
Yeah. A little bit of pain never hurt anybody, if you know what I mean. Also, I think knives are a good idea. Big, fuck-off shiny ones. Ones that look like they could skin a crocodile. Knives are good because they don't make any noise. And the less noise they make, the more likely we are to use them. Shit them right up. Makes it look like we're serious. Guns for show, knives for a pro.
All right, episode number 2, Movies I Missed. My choice this time, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I think, is a hard miss by me. It's something that I just have put off seeing for a long time, despite, many recommendations or word of mouth about how good it was. Just never really took the time to watch it. But here we are with the podcast, and now I have finally seen Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah, it feels like you have to try not to watch this one in your position, Jesse.
I mean, it's criminal. Let's just face it. It's criminal. I should have seen this movie, right? Like, I'd seen Snatch way back. I want to say I saw it on my PS2. So back in early 2000s. I don't remember it well. I don't remember loving it. But at the time, I also was very limited in what I had seen. And Snatch is different. I have to rewatch Snatch because it's just so different.
They're actually very similar.
Oh, really?
I mean, just in style and
it's
subject matter.
Than, and this goes for Lock, Stock too. It's different than mainstream movies, right? Like,
if that's what you mean, yes.
Yeah, I was different. So used to Hollywood movies. My what I had seen has been very limited, and it was so different. Like, I'm young, 20, haven't seen a lot, and like, I don't get it. You know what I mean? Just a moron. Like, I don't get it. And so, it's just kind of what it is. I'm older, wiser. I've seen more things. I get it now. So yeah, this is my choice, and something glad to kind of cross off kind of a wall of shame. This is a bit more of like a wall of shame movie than our previous episode of the Cider House Rules. It's like if you say you haven't seen the Cider House Rules to someone, they're like, oh yeah, I probably haven't seen that either. You know what I mean? But you say Lock, Stock, and they probably like look at you strangely.
Yeah, I honestly don't even remember how I saw this or Snatch for the first time or which one I saw first. I just know that I saw them both while I was in high school, and I've watched them both many times over the years. It like during that, you know, I'm a high school / college aged film nerd kind of era, right up there with Tarantino movies and Kevin Smith movies. I was rewatching these early Guy Ritchie movies like ad nauseum. So I haven't watched them a ton of times in recent years, but not super long ago. I think season 1 of Triple Threat Theater, Dax and I did review this, Snatch, and Rock and Rolla. So that's probably the last time I saw this, maybe like 2018-ish.
Okay. Which again is 6 years ago now.
Yeah. I mean, again,
forever ago.
People say time is a flat circle. I say time is more like the icon for the artist formerly known as Prince. Like it makes no sense.
That's great.
But yeah, I have always loved this movie, and it's one of these ones where I think when I watched it for Triple Threat, again, 6 years ago, I hadn't seen it in a while, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of worried I'm not going to like it as much. Loved it all over again.
Sure.
Watched it again now, still loved it. Just my kind of movie from that time period. I'll probably never not like them.
Yeah, very, very much like Pulp Fiction to me. Not necessarily subject matter or even style, but it's you know, when you kind of go back to early Tarantino, it feels like he found his niche, right? You can say Reservoir Dogs does it, but Pulp Fiction really, really does it. And this being Guy Ritchie's first movie, you know, just kind of like sets the tone for what he does, like that Madonna movie later on.
Yeah. I guess he made because he was originally directing music videos, Guy Ritchie. And then I guess he did a short film, which is almost like a dry run for this, like a super simplified version of this movie or something very similar. And people saw that and gave him some money. And that's how this was produced by Matthew Vaughn before anybody knew him as like the director of Layer Cake and X-Men First Class and the Kingsman movies.
Yep. Yeah. So let's go over some of the cast and crew. Obviously, Guy Ritchie directed this, would go on to direct Snatch, Sherlock Holmes, Madonna.
Some really great movies and some really fucking bad movies.
I haven't seen most of what he's done, to be honest. Like, I've seen the first Sherlock Holmes, and then I feel like he's done a bunch of movies recently, like The Gentleman or something, right? Did he do that?
Yeah, it feels like for a while there, he wasn't really directing quote-unquote Guy Ritchie movies, and it feels like nowadays, it's like he goes back and forth. He'll do like, you know, the live action Aladdin, and then he'll do like Wrath of Man with Jason Statham, which is really cool. And then
he did the live action Aladdin?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And he's doing the sequel, from what I understand.
Oh, that movie was so awful.
Yeah, I won't go near it personally.
Wow.
I've seen a couple of those live action Disney remakes, and I'm perfectly happy just existing with the animated ones. I think I've seen pretty much everything he's made except for that.
Wow.
But yeah, he did like Rock and Rolla, which was in this same vein, but not a great movie. He did Revolver, also with Jason Statham, which I haven't seen in a long time. But then he did stuff like the Sherlock Holmes movies, and he did that. Was it King Arthur? Some Name of the Sword or something of the Sword, which I thought was fucking terrible. With what's his name from Pacific Rim, and
I have no idea who you're talking about.
Main guy from Sons of Anarchy.
Charlie something. Charlie
Hunnam.
Yeah,
I thought that movie was terrible. But then, like, The Gentleman felt like him getting back to basics and like, wow, he made another Snatcher Lock, Stock. And then he, not too long ago, did the Operation Fortune movie with Aubrey Plaza and Jason Statham, which felt like it wanted to be one of these, but I just didn't think was that great. But then he did like The Covenant, which is like a serious modern military movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, which was really good. I loved The Wrath of Man, which I already mentioned. But then he does like the Man from U.N.C.L.E. movie with Henry Cavill. It's like, I don't know, he's kind of all over the place now, but he is still making stuff that I like.
Sure. Yeah. So I've only seen, Lock, Stock. I mentioned Snatch earlier, but I need to rewatch it. I've only seen the first Sherlock Holmes. I remember enjoying it for what it was. I don't think I loved it.
They're not great.
Aladdin I hated, and then the rest are all stuff that I haven't seen.
I can give you a short list of other movies you've missed in recent memory to maybe check out.
Yeah. Matthew Vaughn, again, a producer on this movie, who's actually seen more of his stuff than I think I've seen of Guy Ritchie. The Kingsman, the two Kingsman movies, two of them I've seen. I don't think I've seen the latest one, whatever that one was called, The Kingsman.
Yeah, The Kingsman, which might be the best of the three.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really liked the first one. It's crass and ridiculous, but I liked it. Yeah. The second one felt like the studio said, hey, that really worked. Just do that again. And it was just like a remake of the first one. But then the third one, it felt like they said, we'll let you do one more, do whatever you want. And he turned it into a completely different movie. It's like a prequel period piece. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it when I was looking him up recently after I rewatched Lock, Stock. Can you believe there are 2 more Kingsman movies in the works?
No.
Yeah, they're both in like pre-production.
Like, have they really made that much money that they deserve to be making new movies?
I never would have guessed that would have been a franchise that would make it to 5 films. But yeah, there are 2 more of them being like in the works. Blows my mind.
But he started off as a producer for Guy Ritchie and then ended up directing. I think Layer Cake was his first movie. I haven't seen that. That has James Bond in it.
Daniel Craig. Yeah, that's one. I saw it back when it came out and was getting a lot of buzz, and I got to go back and rewatch it. I feel like it has, like so many people like it, it has to be better than I remember. But I remember almost nothing.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the time, Daniel Craig wasn't James Bond yet, so it's not like he'd even had, I'm like, okay, who's this blonde guy that everyone's crazy about?
Right. He did Stardust, which was panned,
which I
believe.
did not like.
Yeah. Kick-Ass, which was all right. And then he started doing those X-Men movies after he did The Debt, which I don't know what that is either.
Oh, he did The Debt? I saw that.
Oh, no, he was a producer on that one. Sorry.
Okay.
He did not direct that one. Like, he's a producer on Days of Future Past, but didn't direct that one. But did direct First Class, so.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 like real notable, because again, this is a very independent movie made for only $800,000 or pounds. Some of the cast, I would say the lead is Eddie, right? Nick Moran. He's probably the 4 of them. Of the 4, he's probably like the lead. So the 4 of them are you could say are the ensemble. Didn't really know him. He's apparently in Harry Potter movies. I looked up the character that he played. You would have guessed.
Yeah, he's one of these ones. He's like a good-looking dude. He's the lead in this, and he's done a bunch of stuff, but I've seen like none of it.
Yeah, I expected him to see his name more, like in a bunch of stuff that would be bigger, because he does he's a good actor in this, and he has a good look to him. But he just hasn't been in a lot of like leading roles. Like he's definitely got. You look at his IMDb, he's been in a lot of stuff, but nothing like big or nothing that he leads.
Except for Harry Potter, just like jumps out of the crowd. But I mean, I like those like movies way less than you. So, and you didn't remember him.
He's like 2 scenes in the wood. He's got like long hair and makeup and kind of goth looking. I would have guessed that was him. Jason Fleming is Tom. I think my first introduction to him was probably X-Men First Class.
Not League of Extraordinary Gentlemen as Mr. Hyde?
No, just watched that for the first time on Triple Threat Theater and did not enjoy it. But
I forgot you hadn't seen that before. I saw that when it was in theaters.
Yeah. But really liked him.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate that he played Azazel in X-Men First Class. All the fucking characters.
Has nothing to do in that movie at all. Dexter Fletcher is Soap, another one of these kind of like character actors. I'm sure he's probably been. I mean, we have some stuff listed: The Man Who Knew Too Little, The Patriot, Doom, Stardust, and Kick-Ass. A lot of these are Matthew Vaughn produced movies.
Yeah, exactly.
But kind of one of those guys actors, but really good in this role as well. Jason Statham's first role is Bacon, which is really interesting. I'm not a big Statham fan. I haven't seen some of the bigger action movies that he's led, like Crank. I haven't seen that kind of stuff. Was he an Italian Job? Was that him?
Yep.
Okay, so I think that movie was okay back when I originally saw it. I don't remember it. Hated him in that him and the Rock Fast and the Furious movie that they did.
Hobbs and Shaw.
That was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's unfortunately not good.
I thought he was okay as the villain originally, and then when they kind of like, he's now a part of the team, it was just terrible.
Yeah.
Expendables, I'm not really into. I've never really been a big Jason Statham fan. I liked him a lot in this, though.
It's like during the era of like the early 2000s into like the last 10 years or so of him doing these big dumb movies like Crank that you mentioned or the Expendables. I feel like I haven't been the biggest fan, but I'm like reaching this point where now he's got 25 years of a back catalog, and like I just went back and rewatched the Transporter trilogy that he's in.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm reaching an era where I'm going to go back and watch a bunch of his earlier stuff and have like a new appreciation for it, because he is one of the only like true action stars we have now, whether or not, or have had for the last 25 years, whether or not all the movies he's done are great, because like I didn't like the Crank movies, and I do like the first Expendables, but like even those 3 Transporter films, like they're not all good.
Yeah.
But he is like one of the few guys who's out there doing it and seems to really like it, and like he has some martial arts choreography training, and I don't know, I feel like I am on the cusp of like rediscovering and having a new appreciation for Jason Statham that I've never had.
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of the things that he's in because I have no interest in like Crank. The Transporter I've never seen as well, but I also feel like, again, at the time when those were coming out, I would have no interest, but yeah, I feel like I could probably go back and rewatch
I think you could watch and enjoy the first one. It's probably okay to stop there, but
it's not surprising.
But like recently he did The Meg, and I thought that movie was terrible.
Yeah.
But like hearing the behind the scenes, he used to be like, before he was an actor, he was like a professional diver, and I think he might have competed in the Olympics in diving. And he was like a swimmer and like a scuba guy. Like, I don't know if he was an instructor or something. It's like he actively went after The Meg. Like he was passionate about the idea of doing this like shark water action movie. So I don't know. It's like the movie's not good, but I maybe have an appreciation for his passion for the bad movie.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. But that's the 4 like main cast members. But this really is an ensemble piece because there's so many people in this movie. Sting is in this movie. I had no idea he would show up in this movie.
Yep, plays Eddie's dad.
So that was interesting. You have Alan Ford, Sting's buddy. Not familiar with him. Nick the Greek was.
I don't. Aside from Vinnie Jones, I don't think anyone's going to recognize the names of any other people if you read through the rest of this list. So there's just a lot of fucking crazy characters in this.
I feel like Nick the Greek was the one that I didn't know who it was, but it felt like, man, I feel like I've seen this guy in a bunch of stuff. Maybe I haven't. You have him listed as being in Fast and Furious 6 and Ninja Assassin, but he just has a look. I've seen
both of those, and I don't remember him in either.
Yeah, he has a look for sure. P.H. Moriarty as Hatchet Harry is another one of those guys that just kind of has a look to him. He was in The Long Good Friday, Outlaw, Jaws 3, and Patriot Games. Great casting because he's just like perfect in that role, but don't really know who he is. You mentioned Vinnie Jones.
This is one of them high power jobs, isn't it? Oh! Got some bad news for you, John.
What the fuck?
Mind your language in front of the boy.
Jesus Christ!
That includes blasphemy as well. Now tell me, John, how can you be concentrating on improving this lovely tan, and it is a lovely tan, by the way, when you've got more pressing priorities at hand?
Tell Harry. I mean, Mr. Harry, I've been busy. I'm nearly there.
Check his locker, son.
I don't suppose there's any chance of you lifting this sunbed up, Chris, is there?
It's not poor. He's got over a monkey here, and that's just in his wallet. Fucking hell, John. You always walk around with that in your pocket.
Oi! You use language like that again, son. You wish you hadn't.
Sorry, Dad.
The only thing that I've seen him in is that terrible, terrible X-Men movie. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. Which I can't.
You saw Snatch. He's in that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, whatever.
You've seen Gone in 60 Seconds, right?
I've not seen Gone in 60 Seconds.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
Also,
you've seen Swordfish. We watched that for Sidetracked.
Was he in Swordfish?
According to the internet.
Gosh, I don't barely remember that movie, but
I never remember that movie 10 days after I watch it. So
it was really, really, really good in this. And you've got some other people in here. I don't know if we should mention them all, but
I mean, again, I don't think anybody's going to recognize any of their names.
Yeah.
Many of them are good. Some of them are less significant.
But they're all good. I feel like everyone's good. So let's get into the movie. Like, the movie starts and, it's got this like really cool style to it. I love how cheap it looks. I'm actually a big fan of how, like, there is times where I'm thinking, is there something on my screen? Like, is there like a fly or something on my screen? And I got up to like see, and it was just a smudge from like the lens or something like that, because they had 800 pounds to make this movie. I was watching some of the behind the scenes, and they had people that were actually going to make the movie for more and then pulled out, and they had to there's different people even cast, and then they had to like wait and find some money, and they didn't even get £1 million for it to make the movie. But the movie's great for it. I love the look that it's not like black and white, and it's not like sepia, but sometimes it is.
I mean, I was even, as I was watching it this time, thinking to myself, like, is the entire film tinted? But there are some outdoor scenes that color-wise look normal.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was like an effect that they specifically went for when shooting indoors to give it a certain like neon lit look or something, but a lot of times it was very yellow.
Mm-hmm.
But I did watch some of the special features on my Blu-ray copy as well, and the cinematographer maybe was talking about how he would light scenes a lot of times with a single light. Like there's a scene where the Barry the Baptist goes to talk to JD, the Sting character, in the bar. And the cinematographer was like, I just took a white neon light and I laid it on the bar to uplight them, and that was the only light that we used. And he's like, they tell you not to do that kind of thing because it's like unrealistic that there would be lighting coming from there, but that's all we needed.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was a lot of flying by the seat of their pants and just doing what they could. Like,
I love that.
They had these plans to do these super slow-mo scenes that you see in the movie. And they wanted to get some like really nice camera, but they just couldn't afford it. So they got like the cheaper version of a slow-mo camera. And that's why it's so fucking grainy the couple of times they use it. And like, I never noticed this. They did a really good job of covering it up. But the scene where the girl who's always asleep on the couch at the pot farmer's house gets the machine gun and is firing it in super slow-mo. I kind of know about this because I subscribe to the Slow-Mo Guys YouTube channel, and they talk about a lot of this stuff, but like especially nowadays, these super fast cameras that take like 1,000 frames per second, the shutter is moving so fast that it doesn't have a lot of time to let light in. So if you want super slow-mo, you have to light it like way brighter than you would ever think you'd need to. But like, they didn't know that when they shot that scene. So they show on the Blu-ray the original footage, and it's so dark that you can hardly see anything except the muzzle flashes. So they actually had to go in and use a computer to basically like take other shots from that scene and like cut them out and paste them in and go frame by frame and like rebuild the whole thing. And then the reason it looks okay is because they played with the frame rate, and they were like dropping frames so that like when she fired, like her whole body would shake, but then it's like she would freeze, and then the next bullet would come out and she'd freeze. So it like fucks with your perception, and it doesn't look as bad as it would have if they played at normal speed. Like, they really just flew by the seat of their pants on this thing. Yeah.
I love hearing that, especially again in 1999, where it's like, oh, they used a computer. Like, now that's no big deal, but in 1999, like how difficult that would be, and like, expensive.
But I think it all comes from that world of music videos. Like, that's where all that like really crazy stylistic stuff was happening. And Guy Ritchie brought some of that innovation to this movie and like out of the box thinking to like fix a problem like that.
That is, I love it. I love these early movies by these filmmakers that go on to become so popular because their first ones like knock it out of the park. You know, it's that passion that they have to make the movies, you know, like the Kevin Smith with the Clerks and Reservoir Dogs with Quentin Tarantino and
Sam Raimi with The Evil Dead.
Yeah, the movies aren't perfect, but that's what makes them so good is like they just took everything that they could without as little as money, you know what I mean? They get as much money as they could, which was almost nothing, and just make something that's just so groundbreaking, because it really is.
And is there a conversation to be had about the fact that like we may never see anything quite that impressive again, because anybody can go out and shoot a movie on their iPhone that has like slow-mo features and everything, and like somebody can make a fantastic movie using just like their cell phone, but like without having those problems that they have to solve and like having to spend money on like film and whatnot. Like, I don't know, this is probably like a very like boomer sounding thing to be like, well, it'll never be as good as it used to be back when we had to work harder. But
I think it's just going to be different, right? Like I've seen stuff because of visual effects. I mean, like Blender's free and you can make amazing visual effects using a free 3D modeler. And Adobe Premiere and all these different like programs are just free to use. And like you said, everyone's got a phone and they all have like amazing cameras. And so you can do that. And I've seen stuff where it's like, wow, that's impressive. It's just a different type of impressive, I think.
I mean, I remember one of the first times I ever saw something like what we're talking about was when we were doing Sidetracked, that movie Tangerine.
Yeah.
About the trans women like running around town all night trying to find one of their like boyfriends or something, and the whole thing was shot on an iPhone. And I mean, it's a pretty good movie, not exactly my typical cup of tea, but it was extremely well done considering the limitations they put on themselves. Right.
And that's the thing is I think I love when people take their passion and make it despite everything that would take to make it, you know what I mean? Like art is made through the difficulties.
AI. I think AI is the word you're looking for.
Well, 2024, yes. In the past, true art is made from those times when it's like we don't have the money to make it. You know, Star Wars, the original Star Wars, you know, was so groundbreaking because they were making stuff that never had been made, and they didn't have $1 billion to do it. It's not like Avengers Endgame when you have $500 million to make a movie, and that's not necessarily the same thing. It's a great movie, but the budget's unlimited. You can do whatever you want. You know what I mean? When you see something like this, it's like the writing has to be good. The directing has to be good. It has to be able to live off more than just being cheap to make. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you this. I was so surprised at how funny the movie was. I had no idea that it was a comedy. I was like laughing a lot in this movie. It was really, really funny.
Your stupidity might be your one saving grace.
Huh?
Don't me, Greek boy. How is it your fucking stupid, soon-to-be dead friends thought that they might be able to steal my cannabis and then sell it back to me? Is this a declaration of war? Is this some white cunt's joke that black cunts don't get? Because I'm not fucking laughing, Nicholas. I know you couldn't have known my position, because you're not that stupid that if you did, you wouldn't have turned up here scratching your ass with that "what's going on here" look slapped all over your Chevy Chase. But what you do know is where these people live. If you hold back anything, I'll kill you. If you bend the truth, or I think you're bending the truth, I'll kill you. If you forget anything, I'll kill you. In fact, you're gonna have to work very hard to stay alive, Nick. Now, do you understand everything I've said? Because if you don't, I'll kill you.
You really got to rewatch Snatch, my friend.
I do. I mean, especially after watching this, it was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. But I mean, just right away, it's not just like jokes, but it's just the situations and the way all the characters are played off of each other. And even like the relationships between the four of them is like so well established. I think it's funny that Jason Statham's character is probably the least established. He's just kind of like the muscle.
He's the cool one.
Yeah. But all of them are great. And every character that we kind of meet throughout just brings something that is really good. We have the two dumb thieves, Gary and Dean, in the movie. Their whole little back and forth of trying to steal the rifles and everything that kind of happens with them, I thought was really funny. I really liked how there was things that were happening that you didn't know were a part of the story until later on, like when they walk into the bar and the guy comes like running out and he's on fire, and then you kind of go back and get the story for that later. And even the character, like the guy is watching something on TV and they're like trying to turn it off, and then like you find out that character is actually the one that owns all of the weed that's going to get stolen later on. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff is so good and you don't see it coming. It's just so well written, and everyone is really, really good at it. I love Vinnie Jones and his character and the relationship that he has with his son. Just the fact that he's like this like big giant hitman. He's like so scary, but he doesn't want his like son to swear. And he like teaches him morals.
He's like busy crushing a guy inside of a tanning bed, and then his son like sees the amount of money in the guy's wallet, and he says a curse word, and Vinnie Jones is like, "Oi, talk like that again, you'll wish you hadn't."
It's just so good. He was so good, man. Yeah, I think I was surprised mostly by how funny it was. And the story is just so enjoyable. Like
the story of this movie is the plot is like a Rube Goldberg machine.
Oh yeah.
Like
100%.
It's just, it never, like you could never imagine how it's all going to come together. And, you know, it's completely unrealistic, like that all of this crazy shit would happen in the convenient way that it does. But like a Rube Goldberg machine, you just kind of sit there in awe, like watching it all click together and all the pieces work proproperly. And
even
I mean,
at the
Snatch is
end,
very similar. I feel like this one's even more complicated than Snatch. But yeah, I just love at the end how every storyline is coming to an end and intersecting with
but
one
I love
another.
how the end kind of baits and switch constantly, where it's like, oh, they are going to get the money, and then they don't get the money, and then Vinnie Jones comes back with the money, and then then the money's not in there, and then it's like, oh yeah, the rifles that they told the guy to get rid of are actually the thing that's worth a whole bunch of money. And it's like all that stuff, like the bait and switch constantly back and forth of like, they're going to get it. They're not going to get it. They're going to get it. They're not going to get it.
They're in the clear. Now they're in trouble again.
You're right. It was just so good. It was just so well written. And I just loved like every moment of it. It was really, really, really good. I mean, every character is kind of like, you know, there's a lot of comparisons to Quentin Tarantino because it's a crime film, and these characters are like dirty versions, lesser versions of like what Pulp Fiction is. But like you have like the porn king who's also the guy with the money, Hatchet Harry, and he's got his muscle Barry the Baptist, who doesn't have a lot of screen time, but I just really enjoyed the times that he was on screen. You know, there's something when we were doing Sidetracked, we'd go back and watch a lot of like 70s movies, and we'd see the movies that were like 70s New York, especially like Times Square, and how like grimy and dirty it was, and how like there was just this appeal to watching, like going back in time and seeing New York, the grimy, gross New York at the time. I loved kind of like visiting that. And I'm not familiar with London. I've never been there. I've never seen this part of London, right? Like the gross, cheap, gangster filled, and not even like big gangsters that you see, like, but like the small time gangsters. All that stuff is just really, really interesting and something that I had never seen before. So it was just a pleasure to kind of live in this world for a moment. I love kind of going back into those moments that capture certain areas or certain times, even if I'd never been there.
Yeah. Everyone with their flip phones.
Yeah. That was so good. Yeah, man. It just really captured a moment.
Yeah. And like, because they both deal with like crime and they have like these interweaving storylines, it's very easy to make a comparison between something like this and Pulp Fiction, even though they obviously do have different styles to them. But even like just both that movie and this one, and like the stuff that Kevin Smith was doing around the same time, just all these movies that are so dialogue driven with like these heightened characters. They were all kind of uncovering the same gold at the same time.
Right.
And yeah, it's just a very easy to kind of put into a little box, like package deal of cinema of the time, even though this came a little later than those other movies. But,
he was probably working on this around the time Pulp Fiction came out, because it took them a while to get this made. You talked about like them making a short film before, just to kind of get the proof of concept down, the fact that he could do it. It's the idea of taking these like archetypes and then throwing like modern crazy dialogue with them that like is just so hyper realistic in a way that it just wasn't on film at the time. It's become so common now that it's kind of lost its appeal. But these guys were pioneers, and Lock, Stock is just right there. And as I was watching this and as I got done, I was just like, why? I was just kicking myself, right? I was like, why haven't I seen this? I felt like I'd been missing out on something that was just so, as I've loved like Pulp Fiction, as I've loved Clerks, and I've loved these movies that you talked about that were influential. It's just like, man, this for me could have been one of those, or it's like I really missed out taking this long to get back to it. But
well, I'll say in that case, it's a good idea you came up with this idea for a podcast.
It sure is. It sure is. So some of the information on this is a little bit sketchy because of how small the budget was. And it's not like it got a giant wide release, right? From what I could find, the budget was $800,000 or pounds. And I think in the US, it made $28.1 million. It opened on 8 theaters on March 5th, expanded to 33 theaters the following week, expanded to 157 theaters in the third week, 161 in the fourth week. And it was in theaters until May 23rd for a total US box office of $3.6 million. So it's not like it came to the box office, it was a giant hit, but DVDs, DVD sales, rentals and things like that. Definitely, this is a movie that became a cult classic.
Yeah, I mean, just go back and look at, I think famously Boondock Saints opened in a single theater for 1 week, but then it became a fucking cultural phenomenon thanks to rental stores. That kind of thing would happen back then.
Yeah.
When you could still rent things in a store.
Right. When people wanted to go out to see the stuff that they wanted to see instead of just having it right there.
But like I said, I watched this a billion times. This is like one of those movies that I would show to people, and it just felt like it spread like a virus between like friends of mine and people in my peer group. And again, I'm sure one of them showed it to me, and then I just like adopted it as like, this is part of my personality now because I'm a teenager.
Right.
What is going on?
I don't know, but what I do know is there's no more Harry, which means there's no more debt. And if there's no more debt, there's no more problem. And there's no problem with the neighbours because they're all dead. And I think, if I get this right, we haven't done anything wrong and we're in the clear.
No, I could see that it would speak to especially late 90s youth. Those kids that are growing up like, man, this is cool because it's so counterculture to what everything else that's coming out. I mean, this is the same year that Fight Club came out. Which again was very popular for being as counterculture as it was and so different. And people were craving things that weren't as safe and things that were fresh and things that were new. And it feels like Lock, Stock kind of.
And now nobody is craving that. And so Hollywood doesn't give it to us anymore.
Right. I think this is what we need from Movies I Missed is Ryan's Hot Take Corner, because Ryan is just going to deliver it and just sound like
I mean, you'll remember that I was always like I was always glass half full on Sidetracked, where like we'd be doing our end of the year wrap up episode and you'd be like, it was a pretty shitty year for movies. Now I'd be like, no, it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw like 3 times as many things as you, and there was like this thing that was pretty good. But man, the last couple of years I feel has broken me.
Yeah, it's definitely rough out there. 1999, very different though.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of the reviews. Roger Ebert, Lock, Stock is fun in a slapdash way. It has an exuberance, and in a time when movies follow formulas like zombies, it's alive. 3 out of 4 stars.
Man, Roger Ebert should be thanking his lucky stars he's not alive now. Because if he thought that movies were following formulas like zombies back in 1999, oh my God.
I think the 2 movies that we've done, I think Roger Ebert's kind of had his finger on the pulse. Not to say that everything he's going to say or his reviews are going to be right on.
He knew what he was talking about. I mean, the more I learn and read about that guy,
Yeah, it is true because it's funny to think, as you say that in 2024 about movies following formulas. It's hard to think about, but it's true even back in 1999.
I mean, I'm sure there's always let me tell you, I was taken aback because I love Quentin Tarantino and I love 80s movies. But I think 2 years ago for Christmas, I got, he wrote a nonfiction book called Cinema Speculation, which was just like him writing essays and things about, and reviews of movies from the 1970s, because that's like the stuff he grew up on and he's really has a fondness for. Mm-hmm. And as I'm reading the book, I'm thinking to myself, man, I hope that he does a book about the 80s next, because like I would love to hear his thoughts on those. But then as I'm reading it, like sprinkled throughout the book were just these like little jabs at the 80s. And I was like, what? He would call it like the miserable decade and stuff. And I'm like, he doesn't like 80s movies. And then
that's funny.
Somewhere towards the end of the book, he finally like puts it right out on Front Street and is like, you know, the 80s suck because all of a sudden good guys always win and there's never any like tension and all this stuff. And I was like, it just goes to show that in somebody's eyes, every period has
right.
its problems. And like, you know, someone whose opinion on that kind of stuff I respect a lot, really. It doesn't change my opinion on like the 80s movies that I love. Like, how can you fucking shit on the decade that gave us like the Terminator and Aliens and Ghostbusters and Back to the Future? But I get it coming from his point of view.
Sure.
He's a child of the 70s.
Sure. I do think that there's a lack of original ideas that are becoming giant hits. There's still people making movies that have original ideas, but they're not becoming cultural phenomenons. You know what I mean? Like the Terminators, the Back to the Futures, even the Ghostbusters, all original ideas, right? Like all concepts in the 80s and the Matrix in the 90s. These original ideas that become cultural icons, that stuff is not just happening. Everything is an IP or reboot or reimagining, and it's just different. It's just not the same. So I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm actually a little surprised. We'll get to some of these reviews that it got as many positive reviews as it did, because it feels like this is a movie where reviewers, critics would be like poo-poo it, and then later go back and retract it and be like, oh yeah, it was a good movie. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like one of those kind of movies. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone said, even when the accents are indecipherable as the plot, Ritchie keeps the action percolating and the humor on high. 4 out of 5 stars. I got to tell you, man, I do have a tough time with accents. I did not find the accents too tough to I didn't need subtitles, and the plot was easy to follow. It was like complex in the fact that it like affected everybody in different ways, but I thought the plot was pretty easy to follow.
I mean, I could definitely see like a casual viewer who like they're not super invested, like being confused and like missing things. I remember not this one, but Snatch, like again, probably back when I was in high school, trying to get my dad to watch it. And he made it maybe 20 minutes in before he turned it off because he couldn't. He was like, I can't understand what the hell anybody's saying because of their accents.
Yeah, that's true.
So he never finished it.
I think it just shows maybe your age. I haven't got old enough yet. Liz Schwarzbaum of EW said the film's lure, while undeniable, are synthetic, and we never do learn what fuels all the greed besides pints of beer. B-. Did she miss the point or what? Like,
I mean, this it's like surface level the movie. Like it's just here to be like a fun, crazy web of nonsense. Like she was really looking for like what really makes Eddie and bacon and soap tick.
Like why do they want the money? It's like that they want the money because it's money, right?
Because
like,
someone told them, hey, if you give me 25,000, I can turn that into 150,000.
Yeah.
Like okay, yes, that's why do you think people gamble?
Yeah, I think she lost to the forest through the trees in that one. Mary Elizabeth Williams of Salon.com wrote, we've heard it all before and usually with a slightly more comprehensible accent.
Oh my God, wow. People love to get hung up on the fucking accents, don't they?
That's crazy. That's a crazy take. And then
people speak differently in other countries. Just fucking deal with it.
I know. It's not even that hard. I thought it was pretty easy to understand. Paul Tatera.
It's just like, would she have made a comment like that if she was watching like a Chinese film and it had subtitles?
Yeah,
like
just turn on the subtitles.
Would her review have been we've heard it all before, just in a language us white people from America can understand? Am I right?
And then Paul Totaro of CNN said, "Go see it if you're in the mood. You're bound to get a good chuckle, but don't expect too much."
Oh,
I guess
thanks for the review. Go see it if you want. I mean, right. You might like it.
Good job, CNN.
That guy made it. He made his money on that one.
Good job, CNN. As far as awards go, not surprising. Again, these low budget first time filmmakers are never really going to get awards for these movies. They'll usually get it for their second ones if they kind of like Reservoir Dogs didn't get any nominations, I think, but Pulp Fiction did a bunch. Awards. The film was nominated for the British Academy Film Award in 1998 for Astounding British Film of the Year.
Let's be honest, okay? Maybe it's not an A-ward, but Guy Ritchie's reward for making this movie was that someone gave him a bunch of money to make Snatch, and he was able to put Brad Pitt in it, and then that launched his fucking career.
Well, that's what it usually is, right? Like, you usually show that you could do it, and then go on and make something that's like that version of, but with a budget and with real paid actors, you know?
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino makes Reservoir Dogs, which is very good, and then he makes Pulp Fiction, which is great.
Right.
Guy Ritchie makes Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then he makes Snatch, which most people consider to be the better movie. If nothing else, it's much more polished. Mm-hmm. Kevin Smith makes Clerks, which everyone likes, and then Mallrats.
Well, there's always the exception to the rule, right? There's always the exception. I love Mallrats, but it didn't make any money.
Yeah, I like Mallrats, but it's just, it's funny that, like, they gave him, like, here's your chance, and then he was just like, I'm going to make the dumbest comedy ever.
But they also didn't give him a Brad Pitt, right? Like, the biggest name in his movie.
Yeah, but you would expect, like, following that track record of everybody else, it would have been like Clerks to Chasing Amy. That would have made more sense.
Yes, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's like they were like, "Oh, good job. Here's a little bit of money," and he's like, "I'm just gonna make the stupidest like sex comedy, basically."
Yeah. Cultural impact launched the careers of Guy Ritchie, Matthew Vaughn, and Jason Statham, which I think is pretty major. I mean,
and Vinnie Jones. Let's be honest, that guy nobody would know who he is.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he played professional football.
Yeah,
but he got like kicked out of the league, I think, because he, like, I don't know all the terminology or whatever, but I was reading a little bit about it, and he like got thrown out of games so often that he was like reprimanded by whatever league he was in or something. And I think by the time this movie came out, his football career was basically over.
He was sent off 12 times in his career, which means kicked out, as well as holding the record for the quickest ever booking in a football match, being booked after just 5 seconds for a foul on the opposing player. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, he was obviously good because he was playing professional football, soccer.
Yeah.
But that feels like a Happy Gilmore sort of award of like, I'm the only guy to take off my skate and try to stab someone's kind of award.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, him and Jason Statham, like, without this movie, what the fuck would they be doing right now? Because I don't even know if Jason Statham ever was like, I want to be an actor. I don't know how he ended up in this movie, actually, but like, this is his first film as far as I know, and he was like a diver.
Yeah.
And from like, I've seen like little videos and things from like his competitions, and hearing the like judges or like the color commentators talk, it's like he was good enough to be in competition, but apparently not very good of a diver, just from the videos I've seen. So like, what would he be doing right now? Probably teaching scuba lessons somewhere.
Yeah. But I mean,
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Sure. But would go
sure,
on
there's
to
some
become
very nice people who teach scuba lessons for a living.
Just keep adding people to the list, right? But would go on to be one of the biggest action stars of the 2000s for sure. Like, I mean, whether or not you like Crank or Italian Job or The Mechanic or Transporter, like those are all big movies. He's in the Fast and Furious movies.
They pretty much all got sequels, even The Mechanic somehow.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, everyone just associates him with being an action star, which was interesting because I expected him to be the heavy in this movie, and he's not. I mean, he was to be the tough guy of the group.
I mean, of the four of them, he's the tough guy.
I know, but he's not he's not an action star in this movie, right? Like,
no,
not his
definitely
role.
not.
And so to see him play something different, I thought was really interesting. Is he more of an action star in Snatch? I don't know anything about it.
No, I would say less of one even. He's the main character in Snatch.
Okay.
But then, he did a lot of action movie stuff. He is in some more drama-y things. I mean, like The Wrath of Man, which again, it's a remake of like a French film. Maybe it's a remake of a previous film. It's directed by Guy Ritchie, and it has Jason Statham. There's a couple of other named people in it. Post Malone, I think, makes an appearance in the movie.
Okay,
but like that is, it does have action. And it is like another crime movie. It's kind of like a heist movie, but it's a much more like downplayed character piece for a lot of it. And Jason Statham's really good in it. Like he is a pretty good actor. Not that I'm saying he should get movies like The Cider House Rules, but
sure.
I mean, he's better
more
than just
he's more than just
like,
an action star. Yeah.
To compare him to some of the other action stars out there, like I like him as an actor more than say a Jean-Claude Van Damme or a Dolph Lundgren.
Mm-hmm.
Like those guys have charisma. But I think Jason Statham is actually good. And like these early movies especially prove that, because he's not just like, slow-mo kicking people in the face.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually like an entertaining character to watch. And he has like, funny dialogue and stuff.
I feel like he's a part of the group that comes out of the 90s into the 2000s that kind of redefines action stars, right? When you think of action stars in the 80s, you got Arnold, you got Jean-Claude, you got Stallone, right? You got those big muscle guys. Then you get like the Neos, and then you get even guys like Jason Statham, who I don't consider him a big like muscly dude, right? He's stocky.
Yeah, I mean, he's more slender. But I mean, I think the thing that's interesting about him, and like I just said, I think he's a good actor, but like if you think about like the de facto action stars of the last 20 years, you mentioned Neo. So you've got like Keanu Reeves, you've got Matt Damon thanks to the Bourne movies, you've got Liam Neeson thanks to Taken and all those movies. But these are all like quote unquote real actors who have also done action movies. Whereas Jason Statham, like, yes, his first couple movies are not action films, but the majority of his filmography is action. Like he is like basically a straight up action guy. That's mostly what he does. He's not like a Matt Damon who also does The Martian,
Right.
And I think that's kind of unique about him, because like who are the other straight up action guys who only do action from the last 20 years?
God, that's tough to think about. Like,
yeah, there are none, because that died out after the 80s and the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And people started to, for better or worse, care more about the actual acting, I think, and weren't happy to just have a guy who can sort of act, throw people around anymore.
Yeah.
And I mean, whole freaking theses have been written about this
right.
Because that's a definite piece of the internet right there. But
right. And now we just have superheroes, so you don't even have to be.
Yeah,
muscle,
and
right?
Everybody's a superhero. Like everybody is the most perfect, amazing fighter in the world who never gets hurt. You know, John Wick and all of the fucking children of John Wick, all those movies, like Nobody with fucking Saul Goodman and like everything else. Like you don't have to be an action star to be an action star. And once everybody's amazing, nobody is. Yeah. So that's kind of my feeling on the matter these days, anyway.
Gosh, I love it. As far as, and then Matthew Vaughn obviously is a big one coming off of these movies, especially if you're a Kingsman fan, because that's most of what he's been making is Kingman movies. It feels like,
although his new movie this year, Argyle, did not do so hot, and people are shitting all over it. So.
It did not look good. I mean, it was about a cat, right? Like, was it? I don't really know.
I don't know. See, all the advertising was like the cat, and then from people who I've talked to who've seen it, like. It's not about the cat. Like I don't know. I haven't seen it. I really want to, even though I'm assuming I'm not going to like it. Yeah. I just want to know what it is. There's some big names in it.
Huge names. It's got Superman, Bryce Dallas Howard, Bryan Cranston, Catherine O'Hara, who else? John Cena, Samuel L. Jackson. Big names.
Fucking nuts.
Yeah. But I mean the marketing for it did it no favors whatsoever. But when he did First Class, that kind of revived the X-Men for a bit.
Well, it was our first, I was going to say our first taste of a non-Bryan Singer X-Men movie. Technically, Brett Ratner made X-Men 3, The Last Stand, right. But I mean, that through and through with the costumes and everything still felt like a Bryan Singer movie.
Mm-hmm. First Class was new and fresh.
Yeah, he had the first like semi-original take with like new cast and everything. And then it just got taken the fuck over by Bryan Singer, and he like mutated it back into his earlier movies.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then he got to do the Secret Service, the Kingsman stuff, which has been the most of his work since 2014. So for the last decade, he's just basically been direct as far as directing goes. Been doing the Kingsman stuff. He's producer on a bunch of things. Like he was a producer on the Rocketman movie, the Elton John movie.
Probably that is part of the reason why what's his name ended up playing him, because he was the main character Eggsy from Kingsman.
Oh, right. Yeah. That makes sense. He was a producer on the Fantastic Four movie, the one that was directed by what's his name? That's no longer part. Josh Trank.
Yeah. Here's something fun. If you've never seen it, did you know Josh Trank is on Letterboxd?
Oh, is he?
And he wrote a review for his Fantastic Four movie, and it's a must read.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to.
You have got to look it up. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because, he got fucked over and basically had the movie taken away from him. So it was fun to read his thoughts on his own movie.
Didn't handle it well though either. Like
No, he didn't.
I mean, it sucks for sure to get it taken away because it could have been an interesting movie. Half of that movie is kind of interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, that was kind of the cultural impact. I mean, it's hard to say that it was influential, but it definitely was influential to, I think, future filmmakers.
I mean, this is definitely a piece of the puzzle along with Pulp Fiction and Boondock Saints to why there were so many fucking movies about cool guys with guns and leather jackets in the aughts.
Yeah,
for sure. This is a piece of that puzzle. It's part of the DNA of the next decade plus of movies.
The only thing connecting us with the case is in the back of your car, which is parked outside.
They cost us 700 quid. I'm not going to throw them away. And they're hardly likely to trace them back to us, are they?
Do you really think it's worth taking the risk for £700?
Tom, you're a dick. Now you take those guns and you throw them off a bridge.
And throw yourself off while you're at it. Nah. Tom.
Look,
Now, Tom.
So as far as notes go, I got a spin-off television series co-written by Ritchie was developed for Channel 4. The show featured a new cast of characters, Moon, Jamie, Bacon, and Lee, who comedically fail at various criminal business ventures, similar to the cast of the feature film. Aired from May 29th to July 11th, 2000.
Yeah, there was only one season, I think 6 or 7 episodes. I've never seen it. Every time I'm reminded of its existence like this, I'm like, man, I'd kind of like to see it, but it's got to be bad, right?
Well, you say one season, but I feel like that's more common in British shows.
For sure, yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of British shows are like 2 seasons and a special.
Yeah. So I don't know if that necessarily, I don't necessarily think it means it's a bad thing. It could. It could
I mean,
be terrible,
the thing that sounds bad about it to me is it sounds like a sitcom. Every week they get into another crazy mix-up. It's not like if it was a modern show, you'd have a whole season like of one story of all the crazy crisscrossing events. But this sounds like every week it's like one of Kramer's cockamamie schemes to get rich quick. Like. Which doesn't sound great
feel like
to me.
It fits the theme of what the movie was. Right?
No, definitely not. But like, man, not terribly long ago, I finally sat down and watched the unaired pilot for the Clerks TV show.
Oh, that was so bad, dude. That was so bad.
And it was just like kind of hard to watch, and I was always like about to turn it off, but I made it through the whole thing, and I feel like this could be similar. Like, it's probably best left unwatched.
Yeah, for sure. That Clerks trailer. Oh, I remember that pilot was so bad, dude. It was insane.
I had listened to a podcast with Jim Brewer, and I was like, oh shit, he was in it as Randall. So I watched it. It's not good.
Is it worse than Clerks 3 though, is the question.
Couldn't tell you because I haven't seen it. So
the problem is I have seen it and I don't know the answer to that question.
That makes me never want to see it, so good on you.
Like, it's tough. It's a tough question to ask. Is the Clerks pilot worse or better than Clerks 3? I don't know.
How long ago did Clerks 3 come out?
A couple years. I think it's a couple years now.
Spoiler warning, if we ever do like movies I missed season 12 and we talk about movies from like 2022 or whatever, I ain't picking Clerks 3. And you've already seen it, so you can't make me watch it.
List. Yeah. I saw Jay and Silent about Reboot too, so I guess that one's off the list, which is also.
I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, I mean, you're not missing. I would never say you're missing those because they are so bad. It's crazy. It's crazy how the mighty have fallen. Any last thoughts about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
Have always loved it. Still love it.
Yeah.
It's my preferred. Like, honestly, it's his first. It's probably my favorite Guy Ritchie movie. I mean, it would have to be for me, Snatch or Lock, Stock, because I've loved them for so long. The Gentleman, like I said, as a modern kind of take on this sort of story is very good with like Matthew McConaughey and a bunch of other people. And I really liked Wrath of Man, which is him and Statham back together, but it's a different kind of movie, but it's extremely well done. The Covenant, I also really liked with Jake Gyllenhaal. It's like not his typical fare, but man, I thought it was a great movie. But yeah, this and Snatch have got to be the top for me. And I've always felt like, even though most people prefer Snatch, that's the more polished one. This one will probably always be my favorite Guy Ritchie movie.
Why is The Covenant called Guy Ritchie's The Covenant? There's no other movies of his that have Guy Ritchie's insert title.
My only guess is because it's such a generic title, and like Alien Covenant had come out not long before. So they were looking for some way to like remind people what it is. That's my only guess.
Okay. So apparently there was a 2006 movie called The Covenant, actually. So they wanted to just have it be distinct. That's pretty interesting. Have you seen his Madonna movie? Because he ended up getting married to Madonna for a while.
Yes. I saw it long ago. And I mean, it's not particularly good.
Because he does Lock, Stock, and Snatch, right? Probably the two best for you, and then follows it up with Swept Away, which is the Madonna movie.
Well, I think, this movie came out in the US in 98 or 99. I think by 2000 they're together, maybe already married. So like, it's not surprising. He's a director. She's done some acting. They're fucking gaga about one another at that time early in their, their relationship. And, Snatch, I think, did pretty well. And so studios were probably like, hey, Madonna's a big name. If you can get her in your movie, like, we'll give you more money or something. I don't know. Was
this his Mallrats?
Ooh, yeah. I think it probably was.
Yeah.
And Aladdin is his fucking yoga hosers.
Oh, jeez.
Even though I haven't seen it.
Oh, boy. That is rough, too, man. Yeah. Gosh.
Did you see Yoga Hosers?
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh,
it's
good. I'm off the hook for that one, too.
I think I've seen all of this.
You've seen Tusk?
I've seen Tusk.
Yes, I love the premise of this podcast. You can't make me watch any of these. You used to threaten that all the time on Sidetracked. I'm free and clear here now.
Yeah, no Kevin Smith movies on Movies I Missed, unfortunately, for Ryan Miller. All right, so the question is, did you miss Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
I mean, this question doesn't really apply to me, so I'm just, I'm here for you.
I mean, obviously, I've said that I miss this movie. Like, I definitely miss this movie throughout this entire podcast. It's a blast. Like, one of my faves for sure. Like, I really felt like I missed cultural touchstone from what have been my prime, right? Like, I'm 18 in 1999.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when do you think you saw Snatch approximately? Like within the year it came out, when it was like new and people were talking
21 or 2001, 2002 ish.
Because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you basically credit the Lord of the Rings trilogy with turning you into a cinephile.
Yeah.
So I mean, Snatch was probably early enough that and Lock, Stock, came out before. So.
Right. I wouldn't have appreciated I missed it, but I know that I wouldn't have appreciated it as an 18-year-old. Like, but I wish I had seen it, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
I'm sure I recommended it to you at some point during the 14 years of Sidetrack.
Yeah, for sure. It's not on anyone but me for missing this for sure. Like, there's always the case of like, oh yeah, everyone says it's so good. How's it gonna hold up? But no, this one, I definitely missed Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. So
yeah,
big miss. Glad to have seen it, and definitely will be revisiting it. Easy to watch movie for sure.
Yeah, definitely check out Snatch and then jump right to The Gentleman. You'll definitely like that one too.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to delve into The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
And I mean, again, I've talked about him a couple times, but The Covenant's really good, and Wrath of Man I loved. They're different kinds of movies, but they're very good for Guy Ritchie.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can. Snatch is definitely high priority, though. That's priority number one.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the next episode, we are going to be covering from 1999 Summer of Sam. So come back for that as we explore the movies of 1999 here on Movies I Missed. I'm Jesse Munoz.
And I'm Ryan Miller.
Come back next week for Summer of Sam.